Welcome back to episode 29 of the Precious Metal Gents podcast. I'm Zan here with Brian, and tonight we are going to run through our recurring segments, Mail Day, Card of the Week, talk a little bit about something we've been seeing trending on social media. Well, not on Instagram mainly, but people feeling burnout with the hobby, people getting out of the hobby, people changing lanes. Talk a little bit about, you know, why that may be the case and maybe some of their reasons for doing so. And then we'll jump into listener questions. And our final listener question, we don't really have a main segment. Our final listener question, though, kind of is holiday related. So we'll kind of cap it off on that note. But first up, Mail Day. With the holidays approaching, I don't suppose, well, my mail day wasn't particularly ludicrous, but why don't you share yours first since it's quite a big one for you?
Yeah, I had a 2006 Bowman Chrome Superfractor Favre funded by Market Fund Your Cards a little while back, and then got it in recently. It was a card that popped up. God, I can't even remember how I found it. I think it was somebody. I think somebody sent it in a group chat that I'm in, and then I contacted the guy using the process. He had a few of these of different players. I think he sold one to Drake, actually. I think he sold the 2006 Bowman Chrome Manning to Drake, the Superfractor. But then he had some other ones he was selling, and Favre was one of them. So I messaged the guy, really cordial. We were able to work out a price pretty quick. And then I contacted Mark really in like the middle of the night for him on the East Coast. And as he normally does, responds right away and was able to get the deal done the next morning. Messaged the guy that he was going to send, the payment the next morning. Really smooth transaction, funded it for me. It's in a BGS 9 holder, so I went back and forth with getting it cracked out and graded by PSA, which I'm going to do because it pairs up well with the Almond Green that I have, the 2006 Bowman Chrome Super with him as well. I will get it put in a PSA holder. I just chose not to do it with Mark. I was going to try to do maybe like a walkthrough service or something when I go to National or something like that. But yeah, it's a huge card. There's 5 Superfractors that I'm interested in when it comes to Favre, and this is one of them. So I'm 4 away, and they fit into the overall list that I've kind of whittled down to about 20 total cards of his, and 5 of which being 101s or Superfractors. So really 15 others. I put these on the list. Some people don't like to put, 101s on like a general list of a target list for players because it's really obviously like there's no guarantee that you're ever going to see something like that. But I like to have it on there because I look at this list as kind of being like a lifelong task. So, if I get all the other 15 cards on the list done and I'm just looking for 101s, great. If I get these before the other ones, obviously I have to target them. They so like if you rank, which ones would you go after first? Well, obviously, if one of the other 4 Superfractors that I'm looking for, he's got more Superfractors, but these are Packer ones and they're kind of key ones for me. If they pop up, I kind of have to go for them because they're 101. So they stay on my list because I've really tried to get this Favre list down to cards that I know from this point on when I get them again and I get the right ones. Because there are some out of 100s on that list. It's not just super rare stuff, but I was trying to get the out of 100s that I've previously sold or I have never bought, trying to get them for like the right price, maybe raw so I could grade them myself and keep them. And then I don't feel like the pressure to sell them or consolidate because I have like, $2,000 wrapped up in this out of 100 card where I see all these other copies for so much cheaper. So it's kind of been a manipulation. This card to me is one of the most important cards for him. It's not his first Superfractor. He has a 2005 Finest and he has a 2005 Topps Chrome draft picks, which in my opinion, they're kind of ugly cards, but that's technically his first Superfractors, but it's his first Bowman. It's my favorite base card of the early 2000s, of the Bowman era, really. It's my favorite Bowman card. It's really my favorite looking Topps brand card in general for base set. So to get a Superfractor in that and then also have the one with Almond Green is just really great. And get that in the same year. and be able to pair those up. I've talked to a couple people about maybe trying to do the team set with that year, because I love that Bowman Chrome set. It would be an awesome team set for Superfractors. It's a really unique run of players in that team set. It's got the Favre, obviously the Amon Green. Very few sets where it's got Rodgers and Favre together like that. So Favre and Rodgers. The Rodgers is probably my favorite looking Rodgers card. It probably is my favorite looking Rodgers card, that 2006. It's his second year, but to me, it's his first like real Bowman Chrome card. Because like if you remember, the 2005's got that kind of goofy looking vertical sticker auto, which is kind of polarizing. And then his finest, his finest is kind of goofy too. It's got a sticker auto, and it's kind of weird, and he's in a practice uniform. So this is a really cool image of him. It's also got the AJ in that set. It's got the AJ Hawk rookie, which is really tough to find. So that would be cool to get a Superfractor of that. And then it's got the Greg Jennings rookie in that set as well. So it's some really key players, some big players. I would like to put that together, but I know where the Aaron Rodgers is, and I doubt that I'll ever really be able to get it from the person or the people that are looking to get it. But kind of a pie in the sky thing. But this is a huge card for me. It's definitely a top Favre in my collection. So
That's a huge card. Big congratulations. The funny is that Aaron Rodgers is almost like, if you look at next to the Favre, it almost looks like a progression of movement, because Aaron's got the two hands of the ball, and then Favre's about to like launch it. That Favre came up. It popped on eBay, right? Isn't that where you saw it?
Yeah, it might have been on
eBay. The guy off,
I think it was on eBay. Yeah, it did. That's what it was. It popped up on eBay, and somebody in a group chat that I'm with, might have even been Jazar or something. Somebody shared it with me, and then I, like, within seconds, I messaged the guy and said, here's what I'm gonna. Will you take this? Yeah, I'm gonna do it. Just don't sell it. Let me get this taken care of.
I think at the time too, you might have been funding the Adams plaque finite, maybe something else. So like it seemed like you weren't really like looking to pop for something big, and maybe you'd gotten. So how do you deal with that? I mean, obviously, it's kind of one of those cards. You see it, you got to go for it. But did part of you? I mean, it sounds like you messaged him right away. But was there any hesitation in your mind about, man, should I do this right now? I mean, or were you just pretty convinced from the outset?
Yeah, always. It's always a struggle. Like this last couple of months have been a struggle, because these cards have been popping up where with these 101s, you get like one shot at them, and you don't really have time to sit and question, like, am I making the right move, or what am I going to do if I have to sell some cards, where it's just really difficult because, sorry, I got a cold. It's that time of season, but it's really difficult when you see a 101 pop up, and then you're like funding and paying for another 101. And then you worry, like, okay, I'm going to buy this, and then it's like a 97 Ruby's going to pop up. It's like you really don't know. But I've just been under the impression, and it's worked for me lately. It's probably not smart, but like it's worked for me where, like, if these 101s come up, I just don't think, and I just do it, because I haven't regretted it yet, and I've done it a few times now. So I'm going to keep doing it until maybe I regret it. I don't know, but.
Yeah, I mean, 101s will pop up at various times, and sometimes there just won't be something that you're funding, and you're like, oh, that's great. But sometimes you can't really control it. But like you said, it's just something you kind of have to go for it. And honestly, it was one of those things where you didn't really have the luxury of kind of messaging with them and being like, it's not someone you knew. You can be like, hey, can we do this in a month or two? It was on eBay, so like you had to be proactive.
Oh yeah, it was gone. It was kind of like the Adams, where I was explaining, like, people were sharing it just because we were friends, but like other people wanted it. So it was like, if you're not going to get this, like, I'm going to try to get it. I remember he put it for like a really high price, which helped on eBay. So then I knew, like, just going to find this guy on Instagram and message him, because I know he'll come down. But it was one of those things where you look at it, it's like, okay, he's just putting that price out there to get interest. So then right when I was able to message him, I knew it was going to be gone in the morning, because he already had people reaching out to him. I basically asked, like, what are you getting offered? Like, would you take this? And he was at a really fair price, and that's what made it even more appealing. If you would have been like, no, I'm sticking at this really high price, maybe I would have thought twice. and not been able to swing it at the time, but he came to like a really fair price, I think. And it was just, again, it helps to have someone like Mark, or that's where these funding services come into play, like with War for Mark. You can, at the drop of a hat, you don't really have to think about it, and you can secure these cards. And I don't know many people that have regretted buying 101s, because it's one of those things you just don't see them. So, not telling people to go out and overextend, but when we're talking about cards, it's, if there's one thing to jump on, it's a 101.
Yeah, I totally agree with you. I think you made the right move, and that was just something that you kind of had to do, and you do it again for sure. I don't have a ton of a. Well, let's see. I have one card that I got on auction. This was the card that I mentioned last week, I think, when I set a bid and then forgot about it and then won it. 97 Donruss Preferred Precious Metals, Jeff Bagwell, PSA 8. This is the gold. Has actually 1 gram of fine gold in it. These were not numbered, but there was a announced print run of 100. So you can't really tell. It just looks kind of like a gold card, but these are metal cards. And then I had a odd 2-card value return from PSA. The first 1998 Ultra Platinum Medallion PSA 8 of Chris Canty, not to be confused with the defensive lineman Chris Canty. This was the cornerback Chris Canty, who played for the Pats for a couple of years, and I think just kind of bounced around, never really did much, but was a first-round pick. So that'll go in the team set for that. And then the other one was a Kevin Green, actually Super Rave PSA 8 that I had just snagged raw off eBay, and I've already actually sold that one to Buddy Pat. So that's it for this week. May have one or two more. Actually, there's at least one more coming in probably before Christmas that I won an auction. So I think that'll probably be it for me. I did not. This segues into our card of the week. I did not win any of those Dennis Rodman cards the other night on Golden. Some major sales there, so we figured we'd just highlight those. It seems to be like the second time this year that there's been like a Rodman week, and I think the first one was through Golden first one was through Fanatics Premier, I believe. And I honestly, I didn't go and check to see whether any of these were the same card that sold or not. I don't think so, but one of them for sure wasn't. So from least amount to largest amount, 1999 Essential Credentials Now, PSA 5 sold for $10,000. These are all Rodman cards. That's numbered to 16. Lakers jersey there, number 73. 97 PMG Champ, which is a great photograph of Rodman rebounding, one of my favorites. That was in a PSA 4, that sold for 34 grand. These all ended this past Saturday on Premier or Elite. I'm sorry. 98 Rubies, which has the raindrop gem masters pattern. PSA 7 sold for 45,000. It's kind of a strange shot because he's rebounding, but Jordan's right there in the picture, so it's kind of cool. You get a 2-for-1 there. And then the big one, 1997 Essential Credentials Now, numbered to 5. It was a PSA 8, sold for $219,600, which sets an all-time high for a Dennis Rodman card. I think probably sets an all-time high for that set in terms of public sales. Don't quote me on that. I don't know the last time a Michael Jordan Now sold. I think that's numbered to 9. And so, but anyway, if there was, okay, I just looked. So the biggest public sale is actually his Future, which is out of 72. No public Now sales since 2016. And back then they were only 50 grand. So the biggest Michael Jordan credential sales, 197,000. So this one for sure, the Rodman highest public sale. I mean, we've come to know he's sort of an iconoclast, big Kim Jong Un guy. There's a lot of fans in Korea and Asia that are big Rodman fans. Did you think anything about these sales? Did you think the essential credentials sale was more about Rodman, more about the set, or just some kind of combination of both?
I think it was a combination of both for the Rodman. I was just kind of comparing it to the two PMG green sales from this year. The PSA 7 that was at 183K, and then the BGS 8 that was at 160K. It's kind of on par with those. I mean, I think like having something that's out of 10, and then you go down to out of 5. And the sets are kind of comparable. Like if you think about a PMG, a 97 PMG, the basketball sets are the rarest. The print runs out of 100 or 90 for the reds and 10 for the greens, so it's more rare than the football set. For that fact, it's probably a more coveted set. It is a more coveted set than the football set. And then if you compare them, there's not as much of a gap between those and then the 97, 98 essential credentials, where when you look at like football, there's obviously a big gap between the 97 PMGs, even the greens, and then like the low numbered essential credentials for 98, where it's kind of like you look at the Favre sale compared to like any green, and it kind of blows it out of the water, right? Except for maybe the Rice. But either way, I use those to kind of compare, and I think it's a pretty basic comparison. I think it's obviously a huge number. I really don't think it had as much to do with Rodman as it did the set and the out of 5 factor. I don't know who bought it, if it was a Rodman collector, if it was like a set collector, or just a 90s basketball person in general, or just a rare card collector. But I mean, I don't see like Rodman. I know Rodman gets a lot of high sales just because it's Rodman, but I don't think that played as big of a factor in this sale. It just doesn't seem like it, because if it did, I feel like it almost would have went higher personally.
No, I could see that, and it's hard to it's hard to distinguish. Like the Allen Iverson at a 3 is coming to Heritage. I don't know when. Whether that's they just announced the December 28th
I thought it was the end of the month one. It's
auction.
not the end of the month one.
I looked at that and I didn't see it. Maybe they hadn't posted it yet, or maybe I just missed it. I didn't see it in there. Maybe it is in there. I'll have to go back and look again. But if it's not in there, maybe the following month may still be getting graded, because I know it was purchased raw or consigned raw. So that's going to be an interesting one. I mean, this year, well, basically within a 8-month period, we will have seen the Rodman out of 5, Iverson out of 3, Favre out of 4, Marino out of 8, and then Emmitt Smith out of 9. Although that was a private sale, but still documented. So I mean, there's definitely the set's booming, and funny enough for the basketball, if you're interested in buying one of these now, it's almost like you have to look at the serial number and take away one, since Spinatron has the full set. That like there's only 4 Rodmans out there, right? When this one comes up, so you're like, okay, this is basically one of 4, and now it's essentially one of 3. There's 3 more left. So it's especially on these cards that are 10 and under, it's got the Spinatron effect, or whatever you want to call it. One thing I've noticed a bit lately, and I'm sure you have as well, is collectors either getting out of the hobby, saying they're thinking about getting out of the hobby, taking an extended break, or just expressing some frustrations about the state of the hobby or their collections, or what have you. What have you been seeing, and maybe what are some of the reasons that you think could be playing into their feelings about this particular topic?
I've personally just noticed kind of a increase really lately. There's always a few people you notice that just kind of take breaks or they just kind of disappear, and that just goes on through the course of the year. It's been going on for the past few years, coming and going. But and whatever, I don't really care. Judge people and do whatever they want. It doesn't matter to me. But I've noticed recently, and that's why I messaged you about it. It just seemed odd. There was just a lot of people like at one time, like at least I've noticed like I could count five just off the top of my head in the last couple of months that I've noticed that I've followed or followed me that I've noticed that they put out like a story post that they were leaving. And it just seemed odd because they were, to me, that just seemed at face value, there are people that I wouldn't expect to leave. I guess some of the reasons that I could brainstorm would be that maybe they're collecting something new now, which I don't know. I don't know if any of these people are doing this, but like maybe they switched to something now. Maybe they're collecting rocks. I don't know what they're doing, but Bitcoin's taken off. Maybe they want to invest in Bitcoin. I don't know. Collect crypto. Switching to a new era or a time period of card collecting. Like maybe they were like modern, ultra modern collectors. They want to get out of that. And maybe they don't say it, but they're like, I'm going to take a break, kind of reassess. Like maybe they'll sell off or trade some of that stuff, see what they can get for it, kind of value it over the next like couple months over the holidays, and then maybe come back in because they still want to collect cards, but come back in and collect vintage or something else, right? Maybe we're thinking about that and they just don't know what to do, so they're just going to take a break. That seems kind of common. You see that a lot with people. I think I've seen it a lot over the last couple of years. And switching to a new player, a team, maybe they're not just totally stopping, but they're just going to do a shift in like how they collect. You and I have done that. I mean, I can't even count how many times I've done that over the year. I haven't actually taken like a break. Like I haven't stopped buying cards or collecting and said, okay, I'm going to take a break for a while until I can figure out what I want to do. No, I have the problem with like, I can't stop. I just start buying something else and I realize, well, that was stupid. And then I sell it usually always for a loss, never more. But luckily, I'm kind of finding my groove with that. So I've seen that happen a lot where people aren't even leaving; they just switch. Um, Switching to a new ideology, like more expensive. Maybe they want to get into really like less cards, but really high value, or like different parallels, inserts, or maybe they're tired of only having like maybe five cards of really high value and rarity. Maybe they want to like get rid of those for a great value and kind of spread out and like diversify their collection and start doing some binder projects and maybe some like runs and sets and like just something different with it. I recently saw, which kind of triggers that, is Perimeter Collectors put a story out, Perimeter Collectibles. He said that I can't. I'm going to probably butcher the story. If you can correct me if you remember it, but he was talking about the diverse or the broad collecting versus the finite.
Yeah, he was. I don't want to say he was knocking it, but he was expressing some maybe fatigue with seeing posts about consolidation, which has become which to his credit has become something of a buzzword to some degree. But I think he was maybe expressing some displeasure with the frequency with which he sees people saying that they're consolidating or something.
Yeah, so that kind of plays in with that one, and then also the most obvious one is just need money at the time like something comes up in life, which is completely understandable, and you just need money, and maybe they'll leave for a while and come back in after everything is settled down with their the real world. And because we live in like I mean, we're in like an echo chamber, as we talk about this, where it's just this is like a virtual world on Instagram of posting these cards and sharing them. It's like to me it's like an alternate universe, and I feel like it can kind of suck people into like an alternate reality where you're getting these cards and you're sharing them and you're talking about them, and it's all great, but people can fall kind of deep into that, and then you start spending money that maybe you could use for something else in life, and you just realize like, what am I doing? And you just that thought right there, once it creeps in, maybe they just get tired of feeling that way and they want to just take a break, and then maybe they come back and reset. Usually if they're collectors, because that gene never leaves, if they're a card collector, it's really, you're not going to just get rid of it. they'll probably eventually come back in and do it differently, or focus on something that they can kind of, in moderation is best, right?
Yeah. I think, yeah, those are definitely all good reasons for why someone might be contemplating some kind of drastic change. And again, the drastic change doesn't necessarily need to be, I'm getting out of it completely. It could just be an about face with your collection. I think there's several things that we've seen recently which may be contributing to that. I mean, we're heavily involved in collecting 90s and early 2000s, but the 90s, with an influx of particular types of people, and well, what I'm thinking about is people who are coming into that era to particularly to make money off of collectors, but also the fact that there are a lot of new collectors who are our age that have come to appreciate 90s more recently, and that in in its totality has created this effect of rising prices, and it's beginning to price people out of some of the parallels that they really want or that they really like. And obviously we've covered other sort of entry level type of parallels that somebody could go after, but maybe their taste is for 98 PMGs or 98 essential credentials, and they're just priced out of that market for whatever reason. So that's one. Negative hobby experiences is another one that's led to burnout. I mean, I had a friend months ago, maybe even a year ago, who got scammed and decided to take some time off because I think it really just kind of destroyed his faith in the hobby, and it was for a card that he paid a decent amount of money for. People, now it's the holidays, cards getting lost in the mail. You see greedy breakers and flippers everywhere. And so some of that is kind of can color your perception of the state of the hobby. And like you mentioned, it's also that time of year where not only do people need money towards holiday gifts for family, people tend to be doing more, whether that's trips or buying things or going out with friends or whatever during the holiday, and they may need more disposable income. And also, it's maybe not even talked about that much, but seasonal affective disorder, depression. People may not be as inclined to want to engage in the hobby. They may just not have the energy to do so. Which is completely understandable. Everybody can struggle with that at times. Can't sell your cards is a bad time of year. Like if you want to go after a card, but you have to sell cards to do it, it's not a great time of year to do that because people aren't buying as heavily. And if you're getting poor auction results, it could discourage you. Whereas you say, I sell these 4 cards, I can buy this nice one. Maybe it's going to take you 7 or 8 that you didn't anticipate. And that's kind of discouraging. And then, some people have just maybe the passion subsided a little bit. I think we saw someone who was a pretty big player collector got out or said he was leaving recently. And it seems like he may have just lost the passion for it. I look at the guy like we had Jake on the show, worked on PC. And to me, his wasn't so much my passion's gone. His was more like, I feel like my collection is tapped out. And this is something where he had kind of invested most of his collection into work done. Now, I know he's got this separate profile I'll mention, but, he was kind of known as the work done collector. And he had hit this point, it felt like, where he had gotten pretty much everything. He had a great year. He got the Spectrum 101. And he'd hit this point where he had most of the stuff he wanted, except for the cards that he just really couldn't come by. And so when you're just kind of waiting around for stuff to pop up, it's not quite as it's not quite as fun. And so I think he's pivoted towards his other profile, the Barnett collection, which is a little bit more diversified. He expressed on the show with us his interest in Gypsy Queen, and you look at his profile, and it's definitely a little bit more, like you said, diversified. And probably regenerates some of that hobby interest. But yeah, no, I mean, I feel it too. I'm sure everybody does to some degree. And sometimes you just got to kind of push through it and maybe not do anything too drastic.
I think that's one thing that I've always turned to over the last 4 years or so since I've really been fully into cards, um, is that I've tried to have like a diverse collection where if I'm focusing on, like you said, waiting for more rare stuff. Like if I was just waiting around for FARs to pop up, like rare FARs, it would be kind of boring. I guess my collecting is really tied to my sports fandom too. So collecting the Packers and Brewers, there's always a season that I'm excited
Hmm.
for. And I guess I've noticed I've kind of drifted my collecting habits towards when those seasons are going. Like when the Packers are in full steam, I'm always looking for like my Packers PC stuff. And then when the Brewers are, and I'll still pick up Brewers obviously, but and then vice versa when the Brewers are playing it, it's more on those. But I try to have like a different layers of collecting. So I have my binder project stuff that I work on. Like my Brewers Gold, uh, Bowman Chrome Tops Chrome and finest gold out of 50 cards, where I put together kind of player runs of those for memorable Brewers. And then I build like a spreadsheet with different players I like, and find their gold refractors. And then I also have a binder with my 90s stuff for the Brewers. So that's usually on like the lower end, and it pops up more regularly, and it's a fun thing to get where you're getting more frequent mail days. But I'm not just piling up mail days and just throwing them in a box. By putting them in a binder, it kind of forces me to like have some type of organization and be on the hunt for stuff. So I get like the benefit of like the search. I get the benefit of getting the mail day and excited to complete another piece of it. And then I also get the joy of having like obviously a cool card, and it's not at a very high price. So I guess trying to find some like layers of collecting. Like maybe if you have a couple players that you're kind of tapped out on, where you have a lot of their cards and you're waiting for like one or two big cards, maybe try to put together like nothing that you're going to put together and then want to just get rid of, where it's just pointless. Like, why am I doing it? But like maybe try to think of a player that you really like that maybe is on the cheaper side, that you would have fun kind of collecting in the meantime, and knowing that when I do complete this collection, like I'll set it aside and keep it maybe in a binder or something. So it's not just like I'm going to want to get rid of this right away anyway. So they're just some ideas to kind of keep you engaged in the hobby, but also kind of take away the stress and pressure of locating these big cards all the time.
Yeah, absolutely. That's a great suggestion. Try to pivot, keep it fresh if you can. Okay, listener questions. First one from our buddy Drake at Drake's PC. In regards to parallels and serial numbers, which matters more, color or serial number? As examples, there are green one of ones people jump all over, but greens out of five are largely ignored. What he's probably referring to green kabooms, and then you get green parallels like in Prism, Optic, Select. People love golds out of 10, but largely ignore black out of 10. One example tells me color matters, while the other tells me numbering matters. What do you think?
That's a great question, as they usually are from Drake. I think I'll take it even a step further. Something that he doesn't mention is I think the legacy of the parallel matters the most. So it's not like necessarily the serial number. It's not necessarily they come into play, but it's not necessarily serial number. It's not necessarily the color, but it's more of like the legacy of that parallel. So obviously, gold is a really popular aesthetic. So in different areas, there's the golds out of 50s that are just as popular as they might not be as valuable, but they're just as popular as like a Prism gold out of 10. So I'm not trying to draw the comparison of like a gold out of 50 would be the same price equivalent for a high name player as like a gold Prism out of 10, but like the popularity is still there. The price point might not be what the popularity is. So we know that there's certain colors that are popular, but you have to start thinking too, like, why is the gold a thing? There's gold shimmers, there's gold waves, there's gold, all these other things. Why are they not as popular? They're gold too, and some of them look kind of cool. But really, it comes down to the lineage. When you look on like eBay and you see people posting true gold or true black finite 101, it's not so much just because it's black, even though the black aesthetic and like the finite parallel or something looks cool. It's more so the lineage and like kind of the legacy of that parallel, which I think matters the most.
Yeah, I think that's a um, good way to distinguish it. Now, I would say, like for instance, with the green examples, the green. I'm assuming the green 101s he's referring to are mainly referring to kabooms. I'm sure there are others, but when I think about it, greens are 101s, the golds are out of 10. Saying greens out of 5 are largely ignored. And that's usually because with greens out of 5, there's a gold parallel in those sets, which is numbered to 10, which people typically like more because, as you mentioned, there's a legacy associated with the gold parallel. But then there's also a 1 of 1 that's better than that green out of 5. Whether that's black finite or a true black in basketball or what have you. So green is kind of stuck in between them. Now with a green 1 of 1, like for a kaboom, that is the best card there. So when you have something that is, and this is again more for modern sets, if it's not gold or black, you are going to have a limited market for it. Now there are obviously exceptions. Color matches are a big one. Maybe super short prints of certain types of parallels, like people like prism snakeskins, maybe, and those are incredibly difficult to find. I think hobby exclusive case hits, and so there are a few, but to me it's more about the color because at least with modern, black carries the panache of a 1 of 1. I mean, that's just what we see it as. Golds, like you said, they've been, especially with early 2000s tops, was kind of all over the map with respect to golds. But you see those stretching back into the 90s. I mean, like the 99 finest golds, right? And that was before really there were any other colored parallels. And so I tend to think that it's about color. Um, and as it evolves, like so long as golds have been tens for so long now with the modern Panini products, that so long as they stay at 10, I think that creates a pretty strong lineage for them going forward. Now, if they were to change it every year, that'd be different. But I mean, with all these parallels, people have to just make room for a couple. So I do think that the color is going to ultimately trump the serial number. But again, with modern stuff, the color and the serial number are pretty inextricably linked because, like I said, black's usually 1 of 1 and gold's usually out of 10.
Yeah, I mean, to answer his question in the spirit of the question, if I had to pick one, I would say color, and it's just for the reasons that you explained. Like gold is popular for a reason, black is popular for a reason. I've been like we talked about. I've been getting into like the early Bowman, the reds out of 5, the Bowman Chrome red refractors out of 5. They're to me like the red is kind of aesthetically appeasing with any color. It doesn't really have to match. It's just kind of a cool looking border. I think one of the things that irritates me the most about 2000s, early 2000s era cards, really in any era, but the 2000s tops, if they would have just made consistent parallels for the early 2000s, they hurt the hobby, football and baseball and basketball really, but mainly football and baseball. It was the worst. They really hurt the card collecting space with going all over the place with parallels. Like parallels were just kind of like a newer thing at the time too. And then you harm it really by having different colors all the time. And people were looking at like, what the hell is this? I mean, one Bowman Chrome's got reds out of 5, and then Topps Chrome's got them out of like 25. And then, Bowman Chrome's got golds out of 50, and they have consistent golds out of 50 that are beautiful cards. And then you got Topps Chrome that has unnumbered golds, and then they got out of 100, then it's all over the place. So it's like they harm it by having no consistency. That's what I love that at least Panini did that right, where they had their parallels be consistent. They might have a lot of them, but they did it right where they kept it consistent. And I really hope that does do something when you have consistent numbering of these colors that comes into play. The next question that we have here is from Am I going to mess this up? Is it four kick four at four K?
I don't
Okay,
know. It looks like it. Yeah.
it's at 4K1CK4. Uh, Says thoughts on cards with Disney, UFC, WWE, Pokemon, pros and cons and of those, and where do they have their place in the hobby?
Pros and cons. So those are, I don't collect any of them, full disclosure, but have some passing familiarity with most of them. Uh, so pros and cons. Cons, I mean, I guess if you are looking to buy something to make money off of, it's going to require some specialized knowledge before you get into those. UFC and WWE. I mean, UFC obviously is like a sport, right? In the sense that there's rankings and guys are, you win, you move up the rankings. WWE being stage is more about like entertainment, and so who's popular is harder to tell. Disney, Pokemon, Disney kind of same thing. Characters. Pokemon is, I still don't understand whether people base Pokemon values on like the strength of the card or the desirability of the character or whatever. But pros are, and I think this is important, there's a couple. One is if you just don't like sports very much, it's sort of one of those things where cards, just collecting cards can be in any number of arenas. So Pokemon, Disney, Magic the Gathering, we've poked fun at the Black Lotus, but like there's a lot of avenues that you can go down that aren't sports related necessarily, but that may make card collecting fun. Garbage Pail Kids is another, um, and especially if you have a younger kid, like my kids, like they like watching football and follow it, but the cards they collect are Pokemon cards because their friends have them and they like the cartoonish kind of look to them. So I've heard from a lot of people um, that, I think I was listening to Austin's podcast. He had Mikey and the Hobby on there, and he was talking about his relationship with his daughter and how they've cultivated that by collecting Pokemon cards. And so, it's a great way you can bond with your kids if you guys watch wrestling together, you watch like Disney shows together, whatever, to kind of um, to make a connection in a way that maybe you can't or can't yet with sports.
Yeah, for me, I think it really comes down to what you're passionate about. Uh, with sports, there's a lot of different ways that you can collect sports cards, even if maybe you're not super passionate about cards. There might be a person where, like, you can find a reason to buy them because they are valuable. You could buy them for like value, like a second job, like become a dealer or a flipper or whatever, and try to profit off them because they are valuable. So you can collect cards even if you're not passionate about the actual cards or even the teams, or you don't even follow sports really that well. You just like to use it as a market. You can get into sports. Usually people like that, who we talk about a lot of times on this show and in other areas talk about them as well as in a negative connotation, they don't really live in the Disney, UFC, or WWE space. You see a lot of people that buy those cards. Those are like true collectors. Like they're really buying those cards for the love of the card. And I'm not saying that the most people in sports don't do that, but we all know that there's a lot of people in this hobby that don't do that. You don't find those people in that hobby, or at least they haven't infiltrated it yet. Hopefully they don't. For me, I have a 4-year-old daughter, and I have another girl on the way. So I'm going to be a dad of two girls. I'd like to get them. I've learned that I'd like to get them into collecting cards or collecting something. But as we know, the collecting gene is not. It's not something that you can like teach. You can, when it's there, it's important, and you can facilitate it and you can teach it when it's already present, but you can't go get anybody off the street and have them collect cards. Without getting into a whole dialogue about fanatics. I just want to make the point that that's what I feel that Fanatics does wrong, is they're trying to create collectors or buyers of cards out of people that are sports fans, but they're not collectors. And that's the problem that we're always going to run into. Fanatics is not Tops maybe has people involved in cards, but Fanatics is not a collector driven business. places like Upper Deck and the old Skybox and those, like, they had collectors for the most part, um, designing and operating, or people that were interested in cards doing that. I think they had a lot of influence with that. Beckett was influencing a lot of stuff back in the 90s. Right now, Fanatics doesn't have a lot of card collectors influencing it. So the problem we're always going to see is when these places, these companies, Fanatics makes cards and tries to get people interested. So if you're thinking about Disney, UFC, WWE, and you're trying to investigate those, that's great. But those are cards that if you buy them, I don't know what like the resale value is. Like if you decide to buy all these and you're like, well, I don't really like this, don't be surprised if you have trouble maybe selling them. I'm not saying that they're not valuable, but like you got to really be interested in it. I like Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles from when I was a kid. I have like all the old Topps brand Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles cards and binders. The old Dick Tracy cards, I have those in binders. I have Batman stuff. I have like Marvel stuff. They're all hidden away in binders that I haven't really looked through in a while. And I'd like to represent them in my collection in binders. But so I like that stuff. And like with girls having two daughters, they're really big into Disney. So hopefully, if they like collecting things, which I can already tell my 4-year-old daughter, she likes collecting stuff. She likes Disney figurines and stuff like that in her room. So I can tell that whenever I bring my cards out, she's interested in those. She likes looking through the binder and stuff. So I think she will like those. And with Disney cards and pictures, she loves books. And it's something I can see her getting interested with. So I think the Disney stuff is cool, especially with kids. It's a way to connect with them.
Yeah, I agree. Those are all great reasons. So if you're out there and you're interested in those, don't be discouraged by the fact that you see sports everywhere. Try to collect something that you really like or that your kid really likes. I think that's going to be the most rewarding form of collecting. Okay, at Troy Area Cards simply says discuss superscripts out of 25. What he's referring to are the 1999 and mostly the 99, but there is also a 2000 set Upper Deck MVP parallel superscripts, which are numbered to 25. So, per his wishes, discuss.
So superscripts, I think, they're interesting cards because they have like a cool. I think that's a cooler look. It's a better looking holofoil autograph on those than like the other Upper Deck, the collector choice gold signatures. I was never really a fan of the gold signature collector's choice cards. I know they're kind of popular. I think the superscript signatures look better than the gold signature collector's choice ones. I also like the fact that they're out of 25. So you combine the fact with the holofoil signature on the card and then they're out of 25. I think that's better than the unnumbered gold signatures, even though we know they're short print. However, when it comes to the aesthetic of just adding a facsimile autograph to cards, that in general doesn't really entice me. If I'm going to have an autograph on a card, I'd like to have it an on-card pen or marker sign card in general than a facsimile. So that's where I'm at with those.
Yeah, same. I'm not a big fan. I had a few over the past few years of them, and like you said, facsimile autos just don't cut it for me. It's sort of like applying it just feels so lazy. I also just don't really like the design of the Upper Deck MVP set. It seems really antiquated to me. It was not. There's some good Upper Deck stuff like Black Diamond that was, I thought, well designed, some of the retro sets, but like I just didn't think MVP was particularly well designed. It's a good example to me of where the serial number kind of carries the parallel, just by like if they were out of 100, I don't think anybody would care about them. And I like some cards. I don't mind the ink serial number versus the imprinted serial number, but of course I like a stamped one if you can get it. And so for these, it's just sort of another like piece of the puzzle as to why I'm not a big fan of these. But again, if you take a look at them, they're pretty cheap for what they are, and for a card out of 25, you can find them even on ComC for pretty reasonable prices.
They're pretty busy cards. That's why I think.
Yeah, I
they're
agree.
kind of busy. They're like that idea of like the turn of the century, the 1999 going to
Mm-hmm.
2000, where they're trying to get real busy and techie looking. A lot going on
Mm-hmm.
them.
Yeah, I thought so too. I think like over designed. There's not much of an effect. It's just like let's put more on the card to make it, to make it quote unquote more special. Okay, well, let's go into our last question here, and this is sort of a nice cap off to the episode regarding the holidays, upcoming holidays. At ANW Collectibles asks, have you begun your 2025 goals yet? Perhaps a list of target cards, something to learn more about in the hobby, etc. So we each did a top three. What was your top three?
I got my Santa Claus hat on for this. We made a Christmas list, so
It's
it
about
can
time.
lead into 2025. But for me, number one would be hopefully I can locate, not by Christmas time, because I hope it doesn't show up by then because I can't afford it, but a 1997 Ruby's Favre for a reasonable price. Hopefully that comes my way or finds its way into my collection. I'm going to get one at some point in my lifetime. I don't want to have it be like, I'm not looking for like a PSA 10 or like even a 9. I just want something that's decent shape and I get a good deal on it. And it's going to work out. I'm a believer in, things happen for a reason and it's eventually going to get it. But that's like the number one card that I'm looking for. And hopefully maybe next year I can have that in my collection. Did you want me to go through the rest of my two or you want to alternate?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, no. Go ahead. Go ahead.
So that was one wish. So number two for me would be bad hobby players that are currently here find something else to do and they leave the hobby. What I'm talking about are the people that have infiltrated Instagram again with the smell of money. They see the big sales and they want to get back in, just like in the 2021-22 when these people were just chasing the dollar sign, and they're like cockroaches. They just come out when there's big sales and like a certain market is hot, like the 90s or right now the Prism, the Finites, or any 101s. They're there to just kind of buy up and get these cards and then kind of hold them at ransom and try to 10x them. So the reason why, if someone's looking at the hobby as to why some of these sales are so high, I'm not saying that like it's always the case, but a lot of things that drive the sales are some of these people that are, flipping these cards for exorbitant prices. And that one sale of a rare card drives the price up. So I'm looking for some of those people to leave and some of the other nonsense that goes on with, the people, kind of knocking down other people because they want to pump their card or their player and that sort of thing. So some of the Instagram nonsense, I wish it would disappear. I feel like that's a broken record because that's always the talk of the year. I think a lot of people mention that, but that would be one of my wishes. And then the other one, since tis the season to give, and it's better to give than to receive. I'm hoping that a 2015 Prism Gold Bobby Portis rookie card pops up for my friend Mike. He's a Bobby Portis collector, and he's always searching for this card. He's been searching for it for a while. Has a number of other really good Bobby Portis cards, and this would be something great for his collection. So if anybody knows where the 2015 Prism Gold Bobby Portis is, reach out to me, and I'll be sure to send the message to him, and you'll have a buyer for that. So it's a card that really doesn't surface. A lot of people don't know where it is. One has to appear at some point. So that would be my wish in the next year for him. So
Those are all good wishes. I second that wish about the bad hobby players finding something else to do or somebody else to. Maybe they can go in. Well, no, I don't wish that upon the Pokemon collectors.
no,
Maybe
don't do
they can
that.
go into coins or rocks. Or rocks is a good
Stamps.
one.
Stamps.
Yeah, sediment. Yeah, I think that's a good one. Stamps. Oh, the stamp collectors are all old anyway, so they need some new blood there. I mean, I don't have a lot. I mean, one is actually a remainder of 2024 wish. Two of the cards that I've sold to help fund this grail that I'm trying to get are lost in the mail currently with USPS. One of them was a pretty big one. Went to Puerto Rico for some reason. Like the end recipient is in California, but it went to Puerto Rico for some reason. It's last scanned on November 27th. And then on December 1st, it said it's arriving late, but it's on the way. But that was now 10 days ago. So that's a little bit unnerving. I mean, I've told both these people that I've sold to, like, if it gets lost, I'll give you, just give you your money back, whatever. But I'm hoping that doesn't happen. The other one is a Guerrero, Vladimir Guerrero. I sold the 99 rubies. And that last scanned December 2nd, and then on December 6th said it was arriving late but on the way. So not quite as bad. At least that was still in the States. But yeah, I mean, this time of year is tough for sending any packages, really. I've had plenty of delays for packages coming to our house. I hope those show up. That's a pretty big, those together make up a nice sizable chunk of what I need to pay off. So I don't really want to have to reset there, because I'll have to cover that with other cards that I did not anticipate selling. So that's my number one thing I want to happen. Number two, I just wanted to think of a card to put in here. So I put a Pedro 98 Super Rave. That's one I've kind of been looking for, had a close run-in with in September, and then found another couple, but I thought the guys' prices were way too high. So that one's eluded me. That was on my list for cards to find in 2024. Just couldn't quite get one. So that's my one card I picked. And then number three, I just said, sort of tongue in cheek, a vision to come to me about what to do with my collection upon a reboot. Because when you sell everything, or almost everything, and you have this sort of just like amalgamation of random stuff, it's sort of hard to know what to do. I don't know that I will go back to collecting Vladimir Guerrero cards. I don't think that will happen. But I won't have any Jeff Bagwell cards, but I might go back to collecting him. So I just don't know yet. Or maybe I'll take the approach of kind of the scattershot approach, like some people do. Like, I think of my friend Adam Schapp's cards. He just kind of buys random stuff. I mean, that's not to say he doesn't have like an approach, but like, he's not committed to a particular player or team. He likes various parallels and cards and stuff like that. So maybe I'll try that out, but I don't know. Maybe we'll do a more concrete resolution one. Maybe we could talk about our cards we most want to find in 2025.
Don't you
But
have the
that's
don't you have the Bagwell? You have the Gem Master still, right?
I do. I have that. And I'm trying to keep the 24 karat. So I mean, I have those, but it's sort of like, do I want to go back down the road of rebuying like the 98 PMG, or the 99 Ruby? Some of these cards that I've sold, like, do I really want to go back and try to get them? Sometimes it's something of a chore to try to go get cards you've already sold. But it's definitely something that I've thought about doing. So not sure yet, but we will be back next week. We'll have one more episode before Christmas, and we will do our year-end recap, favorite pickups of the year, maybe favorite moments of the year, biggest cards of the year that we saw change hands. We'll come up with something good. Brian, anything else before we do a send-off here?
No, I think just to cap off the conversation about people leaving the hobby or getting burnt out with it, I can't reiterate it enough that this is the time of year there's a lot of stress on people's minds with Christmas and family stuff. It's the most stressful time of the year. It's, in my opinion, the greatest time of the year, but it's also the most stressful when you get together with family and a lot of stuff going on, a lot of things. And I think everybody that's listening to this, if you do collect cards, remember that it's supposed to be an escape. It does sometimes consume our lives. It consumes my life, and I have to catch myself. And I don't even do the greatest job of it, I'll admit it, but I try to catch myself and try to put in perspective like what this really is. It's meant to be something enjoyable. And if it gets to the point where it's not enjoyable anymore, it can be stressful at times. It can be exciting and exhilarating. That's all good. But if it's overly stressful and you're finding yourself in a deep hole and you're thinking about just leaving the hobby, maybe before you fully leave, maybe just try to pivot into something that's a little bit more relaxing and less taxing, and take a break and come back to it before you just rash sell everything off because you might regret it down the road.
Yeah. Talk to people. There's plenty of other collectors who've no doubt felt what you're probably feeling at this very moment. So don't hesitate to reach out to people, reach out to us. Don't overextend yourself. Don't put too much pressure on yourself. Again, tough time of year for a lot of people. And I don't think that can be said enough. So anyway, thank you for tuning in. We'll catch you next week for our year-end episode. Take care.